don't even know her name, probably Mrs. Gurung, would come down from her home and it would be full of sundala. So she would have oranges. Gurung man now. It's about working with partners and not just us going in there and saying this is what you're going to rebuild the toilet. So I've come back and I've asked them for details. So I've got pages of specifications and costings from that school community to fund the rebuild of that program. They've agreed to fund that program. We also have had meetings with the international advisor to the Prime Minister of Nepal last year. Was it last year? The other earthquake in the far west?
Yeah.
Wanted to supply some support to schools, but we were told it's a one-door policy by the government and everything had to go through them. And you know what happens when that happens. After the earthquake, in 2015, we were able to go to Gorkha and work with a village called Ritapani to build temporary shelters. I had a problem in that no is not a word in my vocabulary. And I said, well, where's my bags? No, they're down the customs. He's now decided, I don't know why you want to deal with a health profession, but he's now to become a doctor. Was a young lady, I think I can call her name, Naran. Naran was a young lady in Melbourne. This is our first trip in 2000. She was a single mum. She was living on the streets. She was addicted to drugs. She was in a bad way, but she needed to go to Nepal. I think it's probably because I just have a passion for people. I have a passion for people who are struggling.
Can you get a tissue?
Photo of a whole lot of starfish that are washed up on the side of the ocean on the beach. And we walk along the beach and we find this person throwing starfish back into the ocean. What are you doing? Well, I'm saving starfish. Yeah, but there's millions of them. You can't save all them. Ah, yes, but I can save that one.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the BD Universe, and this is a special podcast, the BD Talkies, brought by BD Universe. We have got here a special guest today. This is our first podcast, and we have got a great humanitarian, a great community leader, OAM 2017. He has done many activities in the community within Ballarat region, and especially through his organization Aussie Action Abroad. He has committed most of his years serving in Nepal. He doesn't only fund the organization, doesn't only provide financial support to Nepalese rural and marginalized community, but he goes there by himself and works alongside them. So that proves that he's a true leader, and his philosophy is working together rather than just commanding people to do something. So the more I talk about him, the less it is. We are very honored to have Mr. Graeme Kent, aka Nepali Baje. Baje in Nepali means someone who is more experienced, has got expertise in many areas of life, who is wise and who is a good mentor. I don't think of any other name that can be given to you rather than Baje. So welcome Baje to our podcast. I might have missed something about introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Can you please add on that?
Namaste, and thank you for the opportunity of sharing with you today. My passion for Nepal goes back 25 years, but probably earlier than that because of Ed Hillary. Ed Hillary did Everest in 1953, and I grew up doing rock climbing around Ballarat here and up into the Grampians. And there's always that bit of a passion about following someone like Ed Hillary as a mentor. And then one day, maybe I'll go to Nepal. But then it happened, and I've met Ed Hillary a number of times, and his family, and that's always been an inspiration, I suppose, in many ways. But I have now a strong commitment to Nepal. And to our Nepali colleagues, and as you can imagine, 25 years of working within Nepali communities, both in Kathmandu and beyond, has strengthened my commitment to work with, as you say, marginalised communities and families and communities and schools and amasamwas and all of those groups that make up communities. But I want to be able to take volunteers and participants to share that experience. It's not just about me. I just happen to be the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
And my background is, I grew up here in Ballarat. I was a youth worker. I was a community development worker, both here in Ballarat with the YMCA and other organisations. And my career has always been on about living and working and supporting people and helping them to grow. In fact, where we're recording today, I lived when I was a child probably half a kilometre away from here, and I grew up in this area and have a passion about people, and I guess that's my commitment to Nepal, but also to my broader background.
Wow.
That's impressive and inspirational that you did for the Nepalese community. So how did your journey with Nepal begin? Why you are so close to Nepal?
When I happened to be the CEO for the Duke of Edinburgh's Award in Victoria.
Yeah.
So the Duke of Edinburgh's Award is a program for young people between 14 and 25. And in 1999, three guys came to me in my office in Melbourne and said they wanted to celebrate the millennium with an expedition. Let's go to Kilimanjaro. Hey, that's okay. So we looked at that and we decided that it was too dangerous because we wanted to take a party of people into a community that we didn't know about. And apparently at that stage some of the local boys were a bit aggressive to outsiders. One of the guys, Bruce, said, why don't we go to Nepal? And I said, well, that's a good idea. So we looked at a map. We then said, well, where do we go? And Bruce had trekked and done a couple of peaks, but we decided that we would go here on the map, and that was Lamjung district. So we promoted that through the year. We then said, well, how many people do we take? Well, maybe 80 plus staff. So we actually took a party of 100. So we took a party of 100 people to Nepal for about 2 and a bit months. And my job was counsellor for the group and a bit of logistics and that sort of thing. And then the plan was that we would work for 10 days in a project. They would come back into base camp for 3 or 4 days. Then to do another 10 days, and that might be a trek. And then back into base camp for 3 or 4 days, and then another 10-day project. So they did 2 projects, 1 trek. My role was to stay at base camp. And that was based on the Kuti Kola in Lamjung district, small river next to the Masiandi, which is on the eastern side of the Annapurna circuit. And I was camped there with Mela Day, who was our cook, and we were just sitting there while the group was out. And then at some stage, a guy came down from a school. You know what a school teacher's like?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Very demanding. Well, not quite. He was a guy that said, well, come to my school. Yes, that's okay. Where's your school? Oh, just up there, up the hill. Yeah, okay. So we decided that we would go up to the school. But little did we know that it was about 2,000 metres up there. So we went to a school which is in a village called Baje. And it's a village that has a school called Ananda Devi, and that's been the first school that I contacted. The plan is that whilst the groups were out, I would then go back down to base camp and set up things so that they could replenish their supplies and so on. But every other day, and this is where I get into trouble with my wife, because I say that I fell in love with a woman. And the reality is that every other day this lady would come down, and I don't even know her name, probably Mrs. Gurung, would come down from her home and come to our camp and have an apron up, and it would be full of sundala. So she would have oranges.
Yeah.
And she shared those oranges because we were there in January. and she had nothing else to share but her oranges. So what do you want in return? Or maybe some tin cans, maybe some empty, containers that I can store things in. But I fell in love with her attitude, with her sharing of her care, of her willingness to welcome us into her family. And we were strong friends for that period of time. But as I said, I don't know her name, but she made me really committed to work with people who had nothing to share. And that's why I do it. That's why I go back.
So that was your trigger point for helping the Nepalese community.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really
That's
interesting.
so inspiring. That when I reflect back, you know more places. Like you said, Annapurna Circuit and that Kola and everything. You know better than me about Lamjung. Though I was grown up in Nepal.
Yeah. Well, it's only just up the road a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, it's about 200 kilometres. It's like Pokhara to Kathmandu is 205 kilometres, but it takes you 8 hours to drive there if you're on a bus or something. But in doing that, it's about we wanted to go somewhere that was a bit more remote. We wanted to go where villages were small and isolated. And now, and I again probably get emotional in the sense that the guy that invited me to the school first, I met again in January this year, and I said to him that when I pass, I want half of my body to be sprinkled in the bush just outside of Ballarat and the other half in the Cootie Collar.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a bit emotional as well.
So it's very special. So it's a community that we've known for a long time. There are a mixture of Dalit to Brahmin caste in the community. Lots of Gurung, so I'm a Gurung man now. But it's a community that has now given us the focus of what we do, even though we've worked in probably 15 different districts across the country.
Where else have you been working in Nepal?
So we've done far east, far west. When we first started, we had a group that was working with the Bardia National Park in doing some work with the black buck.
That's where I'm originally from.
Yeah, so the endangered species of the black buck, we had a connection with Werribee Zoo here. They wanted some people from the zoo to go to that area. So we did some work in that area with the national park.
We do have black buck conservation area in Bardia as well. So that's how the story started.
So that was the connection. And then we had another guy work in an area that was collecting spiders for the Museum of Queensland. So he was sent off into areas that are high, and over 10 days they had to collect spiders and put them into jars, and we brought those spiders back to Australia, so they were able to record that. So that was in the high altitude area of the Annapurnas. We've done some work in obviously the Everest region, the Solakumbra region. We've done some work in Dolika, in schools in Dolika. Itahari, we've worked with Mighty Nepal in supporting them in building or converting a building so they can use that as a refuge for girls that have been rescued on the border. We've done some work with the refugees and the refugee camp down at Japa. We've done a lot of work in Kathmandu, in Lalitpur, and in other parts of the valley. And again, it's, as you mentioned at the start, it's about working with partners and not just us going in there and saying, this is what you're going to do. We are very committed, because my background is about community development, but we're committed to ensure that the community drives the project. And it's about making sure that if we sit with a group, we talk about the project, but I also talk about the fact that, you have a meal of dal bhat. How is that meal made up? And I draw a plate and we add, some rice and some lentils and some veggies and some relish. And I say, well, your dal bhat is not good unless you have some relish. Is that right? Yeah, I need relish because it adds flavour. But if you don't have relish, well, then you're not happy. Translate that to a project, and what we're saying is that we want you to help develop the materials. You want local social mobilisation of people to be involved. You want to be able to have some expertise. What we will do is provide you a little bit of money to make that happen.
Wow.
So it's got to be about that community taking ownership for the project. And I use that example of the meal of dal bhat to reinforce the fact that we can only be a small part of that. And it's about them doing that project. For example, there's a school just outside of Bessie Sahar. Just 2 years ago, I met with them. They had a very poor toilet for their 120 students. They asked me to help rebuild the toilet. So I've come back and I've asked them for details. So I've got pages of specifications and costings from that school community. I've then taken that to a Lions Club here in Ballarat. The Lions Club have been asked for some money to fund the rebuild of that program. They've agreed to fund that program, but it's run by the local community. It's run by the local SMC, the School Management Committee. It's run by the school. So I get photos last week of them demolishing the old building, digging the foundation for the new building, collecting stone. So local people and students are collecting stone, piling it up. All we're doing is providing a small amount of money to make that building work. And they'll end up with a better facility for the girls and the guys to go to the toilet. And it's pretty simple, but it's very important. And all I do is try and match that together with where we are. So 15 different districts across the country, we've been asked to work there. So organisations like the Kathmandu Environmental Education Program, Global Action Nepal, and others have been very much part of our partnership so that we work through them to deliver the programs that we do.
I love your leadership style. I wish the Nepalese political leaders learn a little bit, like 1% from you as well. So the nation would have a different face.
I have had a chat with some of the political leaders, but they don't seem to listen very much.
Yeah, they don't care.
So
sorry to say this, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's part of our challenge is that we work very closely. We have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the municipality. And we do that with the local municipality and the local leaders of that municipality. But we also have had meetings with the international advisor to the Prime Minister of Nepal a number of years ago. We did a lot of work after the earthquakes in 2015. But again, the system, doesn't allow us to do much in communities that we know that are needed. Last year, the other earthquake in the far west?
Yeah.
We wanted to supply support to schools, but we were told it's a one-door policy by the government and everything had to go through them. And you know what happens when that happens.
There is a ladder-wise corruption. If the foreigner gives some amount, at the end, the people who are affected, the gate is only like certain percentage of the total funding.
That's right. So what we want to do is that my board, I have a board of 10 people that are made up of people across Australia and Nepal, that if we have money that is donated, we only keep probably 10% to manage, pay for the phone or do the administration that I do. The rest of it is on the ground. It happens to be delivered. I can report back to you exactly where that money is spent. And people are happy to do that. I went to the bank yesterday, put some money in that had been donated from a couple of women's groups around Ballarat.
So how do you manage your funding? It must be costly doing all this throughout these years.
So for one, I'm retired, so the government pays my pension and I don't get paid. No one in our organisation gets paid, so it's totally voluntary. But when we have teams of people to go, at the end of the year, we're promoting a health team, an education team, a community action team, a design team, architects, an animal welfare team. Now, if we have those people in those teams, we charge a fee to cover the costs of on the ground. So their food, accommodation, their transport, their project money, they pay a fee depending on what length of time they're in the country. I manage all that. And then when they're on the ground, you know, everything is organised from the time they arrive at the airport to the time they leave. Their project is arranged, their transportation is arranged. They don't have to worry about any of that. They don't have to add any more money unless they go and buy a beer or they go and buy some clothing or some touristy things. But in terms of the projects that we are involved in, at the moment, one project is a group of students from Adelaide Uni, architects. We've got an old school that needs to be redesigned in terms of use of the facility. So their role will be to go and spend a week and a half with that school, looking at what the needs are, doing some design work. Then we've connected them with the municipality, then we've connected them with another organisation, with estimators and designers and architects and whatever, Nepali, so they can then develop a plan for the rebuilding of that school facility. So I know that on day one, this is what they're going to do. On day two, this is what they're going to do, because I structure all that so that they can work. So our funds come from those that pay a fee to go. And we're probably one of the few organisations in the world that says, you come and volunteer, but you've got to pay your own way.
Yeah.
You know, we don't pay for anyone to be there. We cover the costs of leaders. If we have a group of 10, we can manage that. But, you know, we're dependent on our projects to be funded by the participants that go.
And they are all volunteers.
And they're all volunteers.
So, so far, how many volunteers have you taken to Nepal?
We're probably looking at about 1,342, just closely. So somewhere in that area. Certainly over 1,000, 1,300 young. I was going to say young people, originally 18 to 25, whereas the last couple of years our age group has gone to, and the eldest has been about 70. So some 18 to 70, and it depends on their time availability, their skill. You know, if there's a group of people that want to go and do some work in a particular area, well, then we can structure that because of our connections that we have. So our funds come from projects and the fees that we charge. Our funds also come from me speaking at organisations or writing a submission for funding. So one of our board members is a fundraiser, so her role is to look at how we can gain funds for projects. Because I would have, if I go tomorrow and I spend, 3 weeks in the country, then I might come home with a lot of proposals for funding support. I can remember sitting in our tea house up in Lanjung district, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, somebody saying, there's somebody here from a village up there that's come and wanting to share with you a proposal for a project. 25 groups later in that day, I ended up not having food, not having too much to drink, but talking a lot because people were coming with a proposal. And some of those, would be a proposal obviously written in Nepali, so I'll have a look at it and go, can you read that for me? And then it'll have, in lots of cases, thumbprints of the leaders of the community. So they've all looked at it, they've all been part of the process, so that I might get a lot of those projects looking for support that we then need to consider, and then we can say, oh, Kushal, you're involved with blah, what about funding this project here? Can you help out with that? And then, so we make that match between organisations and groups across Australia. And in some cases we can't do that because we don't have the money, But, I'd like to think that, if someone was to ask me what's the biggest challenge, it's money. If someone gave me a lakh or 2 lakh, $1,000 or thereabouts today, tomorrow, I could spend it tomorrow. If they gave me $1 million, I could spend it tomorrow. But, we don't have access to that sort of money. I'd like to think that we could fund a lot of our projects. but again, it might take 2 or 3 years for that to happen. And the local communities have got to be part of that process. There's a mothers group in a village up there in the hills that's taken about 5 years to get their building built. But again, it's about them making a commitment, them having the resources to be involved, and our contribution is small, but they've got to continue it on to make it work. So our funds come from participants' fees, donations that we might get. Like yesterday, I met with a friend who had done a whole lot of knitting. It was actually my sister, but don't tell her. But my sister had done a whole lot of knitting, so we've now got a whole lot of toppies, hats, scarves, tops for children that again I want to be able to take over and give to the mothers group, who can then distribute around in the community. So there's things in kind that we can take sometimes, but there's also funds that, there's an organisation in Melbourne called the Michael Parker Foundation, who have funded us to be able to provide a backpack for students in schools. That backpack is a small one made in Kathmandu. It's then got, copy and column, and so a pencil and an exercise book and a geometry set and a razor and a sharpener and all those sort of things, so the kids actually have some materials when they go to school. And our target is going to schools that don't have those resources. Or we might provide materials for a school teacher that, is classroom, material, like charts and globes or microscopes or whatever it might be that they might need. And it's really about, them coming to us with a list of things they need, then saying, well, maybe this organisation in Melbourne can help provide the funds to cover that. And in most cases, we would say, we'll give you $500, and that $500 will go a long way, and we can buy a lot of resources. So the Michael Parker Foundation for the last 5 or 6 years has enabled us to distribute probably about $10,000 a year into education materials. And that's also supported by a couple of Rotary clubs as well. So, just that amount of money, has enabled us to support a lot of students, low caste communities that, in the past, have had very little access to support for resources. A long answer to the question.
Yeah, that's fine. We Nepalese are really impressed by your work and humanitarian activities and philanthropist talks that you did. As you mentioned that you spend 90% of the money that goes directly to the community, which is really impressive, and our politicians need to learn from that, that how you manage your money. So you are with Aussie Action Abroad. So could you please tell me more about what it really does and how many volunteers?
So originally we were under the umbrella of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award in 2000, and then in 2011 we parted ways. I then created Aussie Action Abroad as a charity in 2011.
It used to be known as
Ozquest. So it was Ozquest that when we first were operating, and that was Ozquest Adventures, and we were able to have participants that went into Nepal, Namibia, Fiji, Vanuatu, Vietnam, Sri Lanka. So we were able to have, and I had staff that were able to do that. And we had different teams in different countries. And again, we were able to do that because we had the resources to do that. Whereas in 2011, I spent a week down the Apollo Bay or down the beach somewhere in a beach house, writing the development of a new organisation called Aussie Action Abroad. We then registered that as a charity in Australia, and then created a board. So since 2011, I was working for the city of Ballarat at that stage, so I was working full time, and then I'd go home at night and work until crazy hours of the night in developing our programs for Aussie Action Abroad. And then I retired, so then I have a shed small office in that shed. That now, I might be out there at 8 o'clock in the morning and come in at 8 o'clock at night and work there for most of the day. And it's really about, like this morning on the computer, talking to people in Nepal or talking to people here. The other night I had a Zoom meeting at 8 o'clock in London, and then a Zoom meeting at 9 o'clock in Melbourne. So, there's that sort of thing that happens at night as well. But it really is about managing Aussie Action Abroad from home with that board that I have that then encourages volunteers to go. So as I've said before, a health team, an education team, a construction team, and what did I say?
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really about us promoting as best we can through social media and blog sessions and those sort of things that share our story, and encouraging people to come and join us. I sent a note off to a guy who was in Malaysia who's interested in come with us. So it doesn't have to be Australian. It doesn't have to be limited to an age group other than over 18. And then we package that together in a team and away we go. So it's very much about developing a program that meets the needs of the community with participants, and then if we've got 15 people or 50 people, then we'll structure it accordingly. I'm thinking at the moment, I hope that we've got a team of students from Adelaide University, a team of health people and a team of construction. So we've probably got 30 looking positively at the moment. And then if we have some others, then we'll manage that in some other way to make sure it works.
You'll obviously get that team, I know.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm really confident that we'll get the team. The reality is that, our numbers come in September, October. We then have a cut-off, somewhere around about the end of October.
This September?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's still a bit of hope that we need to do, but there's still a plan that we will have certainly a good number of people on the ground, and then they'll start on the 28th of December. So they all start together on the 28th of December, and we do that at that time because it fits with school holidays, it fits with university holidays, because a lot of our participants have come from that university background, and they have time to apply for leave if they're working. So Christmas obviously is important in Australia, so we go straight after Christmas. We then would arrive in Kathmandu. They arrive today, midday, thereabouts. They then have dinner tonight with their group. Tomorrow we'll do a session about our orientation so that we explain a little bit about health and welfare and safety and all those sort of things. Then they do a language lesson, so they do a couple of hours of Nepali, because we believe very strongly that they need to have a few terms rather than just namaste, because they're working in communities where English is not spoken. So hopefully they learn a few phrases in Nepali that they can use. They then, the following day, would spend a day at Pashupatinath and Baldanath. So again, it's about cultural understanding, and it's about appreciation of the Hindu and the Buddhist followers. We then had dinner at the Nepali Chulo in Lazimpat. Nepali Chulo has a pretty famous...
that's provide some food.
So a typical Nepali food, and then there's a stage where there's some dancing. So there's a young lady that is on the microphone that says this is a Nawari dance and this is a Gurung dance, and so they get that understanding of some of the different ethnic groups. And then the following day they travel up to their project, and then their project might be for 21 days, or it might be for 28 days, or it might be for 15. So it's structured according to how long the project is. Then we bring them back into Kathmandu. They then will have a couple of days to gather themselves and go shopping, and because we're in Tamil, and then they have a final dinner, and then we celebrate, and then we go home.
That's really good.
So that's the end of this year. That happens every year, but at the same time, there are other times when we've gone in April, other times we've been in September. So it depends on, there was a Rotary team in Melbourne that wanted to go and help build a building, and they were available in September, October a few years ago.
So Baje, like, how do you select your team? Like, if I want to volunteer and go to Nepal, or if any Australian want to do that, how do they do it? What's the process?
So the process is that we, if they send me an email, then certainly I will respond and send them some information. This morning I had an email from an Italian young lady, a vet. So the process is that I then reply to her and say, this is what we're doing, this is our plan for the end of the year. Attached to this email is our registration process, the groups that are available, our terms and conditions about your involvement.
Yeah.
So they get a package of information sent to them straight after they inquire.
Yeah.
They then would register on our website, and then there's a process there that obviously they need to fill out the details of who they are and their, whatever, so that we can maintain contact. If they then pay a $500 deposit, they then get a further document from me, which is probably about 20-something pages of background, of our expectations, about our project outlines and some other detail. And then we would add further information the closer we get to the time they arrive in the country. And little things like, there's a sheet that I provide that is about going on the airport or going to the airport and going on a plane, because some haven't been travelling overseas. So there's a bit of that. There's a bit of information that then follows that says when you get off the plane at Kathmandu, this is what's going to happen because the airport has changed, the processing has changed, and all of those sort of things, they need to know about. So all that's documented so that they've got as much information as we can to ensure that they are well prepared. Then I or someone else would meet them at the airport, then take them to the hotel, and away we go. So that process of registration is based on the groups that we are promoting at the moment and showing interest in that. We then send them information. They then confirm their involvement. We then continue to provide information from there. But if there's a group that comes to me and says that, I don't know, we want to be able to work with people that wear green hats, then we'll find a way to do that. Because the contacts that we have throughout Nepal are wide and many. So if someone has a specific interest that they want to follow, like for example, someone wanted to do meditation and yoga. So she joined with us. The health team went and did work in Pokhara. She went into a study centre and yogaed for 10 days or whatever. So we can manage those sort of specifics that that are there, given the structures that we've got.
Yeah. So and they will have to cover the expenses by themselves. Yeah. Because obviously you don't have fundings.
So so if they, there's a lady in Melbourne that came to me, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, that wants to develop recycling projects. And we know that happens in some places of Nepal, but it happens in a big way here. So she runs an organisation that is about waste management and about composting. We also have an organisation in Kathmandu, in Lalitpur, that is called ECA, Environmental Camps for Conservation Awareness. So I've made that contact with them so that there probably is only her and her husband that will go over in probably April next year to do a planning trip, and they'll look at how they can train and support those that ECHA work with and others about recycling and reuse of materials, and then that will hopefully lead to a team at some stage to be able to take over and do, so we can develop that through that sort of experience.
Wow. As you have worked different states of Nepal, different parts and the different community race and backgrounds, So, what are the challenges that you have faced during your projects in Nepal?
The most frustrating thing is probably finance and bureaucracy. You know, we want to be able to do things right, and you know, we know that organisations like the Social Welfare Council of Nepal are very strict about what they allow foreigners to do. So we work directly with organisations, we work directly with municipalities that we know that we can do that effectively. If we go through the central bureaucracy, well, then we won't be working there. You know, we know that after the earthquake, you know, in 2015, we were able to go to Gorkha and work with a village called Ritapani, and the Ritapani village had been totally devastated. But we were able to work with international organisations to be on the ground to build temporary shelters for those that didn't have a home. When we wanted to go back later on, we were stuck with a whole lot of bureaucracy, you know, that stopped us from doing what we needed to do, because the community wanted to do that to survive, but the system, you know, wouldn't allow us to do that. So that frustration is certainly there. And as I said before, the frustration for me is probably that, you know, we don't have any staff, we don't have any money, and I spent a lot of time working on it, and I love doing it, but it'd be nice to have some help and to have some funding to be able to support some administration or some planning or some, you know, some work that's on the ground. You know, we depend on a trekking company, so we have a trekking company partnership that goes back 25 years. My main man is here in Melbourne at the moment, so he'll be with me during next week. And, you know, it's a relationship that has grown. He's a brother, you know, it's not just a colleague, he's, you know, his family. And that's really important, but it's also about, you know, having an opportunity to employ him maybe and others to do things for us without us having to worry about it, but we don't have those financial resources. But I think, you know, I mean, I have a problem in that no is not a word in my vocabulary. So that's my challenge, is that I can't say no. There's always an answer. There's always a way around that problem, and we'll find a way. You know,
Obviously.
it mightn't be today, it mightn't be tomorrow, but sometime we'll find an answer. You know, the other frustration that I do have is that, you know, I said before about my office is a shed outside my home. There's a 6 metre square building that is full of donated materials. Clothing, knitted material, medical material. The people come and knocking on my door and say, here's something else to donate for communities in Nepal. The frustrating part for me is that I find it very difficult to get those materials over to Nepal, because the freighting companies don't provide it for nothing, so it costs us a lot of money. You're going, so can you carry it in your bag? That's okay, because we can give you a few, you know, 2 or 3 kilos of things to carry in, and that happens. But the problem is that if you have materials that seem to be taxable, the Nepali government will then see that at the airport.
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
And then charge 30% on a number that they make up of tax. You know, there was we do a lot of work on my wife and her friends, is a group called YAKS, Y-A-K-S. They talk a lot because Australia talking a lot is yakking. But it's also about the Nepali animal yak.
Yeah.
And many years ago, we discovered that women in Nepal didn't have access to hygiene products during menstruation time. And so what we've been able to do is, over the years, is make thousands of hygiene packs that are reusable pads for girls. I took in 100 kilos of these items a number of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, all in 5 or 6 stripy bags, what they call them, zebra bags in Kathmandu.
Yeah.
And I got to the airport and I said, well, where's my bags? No, they're down the customs house. And I said, okay. So I went to the hotel, I went to the customs house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I then argued all day with the bureaucracy to get these items through the system because they wanted to charge me thousands of dollars in tax.
God.
And that was just donated material. Because Harry, and I don't know his name, at the thingo goes into his computer and says, oh, clothing, this amount equals this amount of money. And anyway, I decided that after about, I don't know, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, I got a bag and I opened up the hygiene packs and I laid them out on the table. And they were all embarrassed. And then they said, oh, give us 1,000 rupees and run away. And I went, fine, thank you very much. So I gave him 1,000 rupees and I packed my bags and went. But it was that argument that I had all day with the bureaucracy. And that's the frustrating part about it, is that you have donated materials, one, that's difficult to get into the country, and two, that the guys at the customs house just run the line of taxing a donated goods that has been given in good faith to someone who really needs it and can't afford it. And it was the same after the earthquake. We had boxes for water purification, and the man at the airport, wanted to say they couldn't be taken in because they were given to us by Rotary. This box just had filtration and water purification tablets. These boxes had other items for your household, so that things that you just got washed away or taken away in the earthquake. They wanted to charge a tax based on all those items that were inside, or take them out and just give them an empty box. So again, I had arguments with the bureaucracy about getting those items in. So
such a shame. They don't do the work by themselves and don't let someone who is willing to do it as well.
And I know that somewhere in Kathmandu, near the Communist Party headquarters, there's a big compound with a whole lot of vehicles that have been given or donated or whatever that are not accessed and not made available to people who need them.
Yeah.
And I have spent time in the Communist Party headquarters and talking with senior members, but it hasn't been able to be supported in any way.
So from Yak's group, you provide menstrual hygiene kind of product to the women in Lamjung or
all over. So predominantly Lamjung at this stage because that's accessed through the mothers groups there.
Yeah.
But we've sent some to Dolaka, we've sent some to other areas as well, and Far West. Because I spoke at a protest group last week, and I spoke about this situation, and again, I think the Kathmandu Post ran a story of a young lady in the Far West that was in her shed during her menstrual time. Her brother went out to see her. He gave her a shake. She's dead. Yeah. He then shifted her pillow, cuddled up alongside of her. He then got bitten by a snake that had bitten her. He dies. She's died because she happens to have a period. Mm-hmm. Now, one is that we want to give them hygiene packs that help them have a normal day-to-day life, but we also want to have that conversation about treatment and about education and about inclusion of women, throughout that time and beyond. And it really is about not just giving them hygiene packs, but having a conversation about that.
Yeah, it's such a big issue, especially in far western region of Nepal. We have got this system called Chheu Party, where the women will have to go and stay on the shed during their, 4 days when they are bleeding during the menstrual phase.
Yep.
There's no dignity, no menstrual dignity about that. No. It's good that your organization is also looking on that part as well.
Yeah, so my wife hasn't been to Nepal, but she is very supportive of what we do.
Yeah.
And she then started to sew some of these products, and then we now have women throughout Ballarat and Melbourne and other parts of Victoria that provide materials, and then they have sewing time. They have a lot of talking, sewing time, and a lot of packaging time. And then when we can, we take them over and we share them with women. We've got a lady from Adelaide that is coming back with us, I think, at the end of the year. That is a midwife, and we want to be able to have her working with communities about home births or births. We'll work with health posts and we'll work with others, but we'll also hopefully provide her with a whole lot of hygiene packs that as part of the discussion. So that'll be a range of women's health issues.
Yeah, it's still a big issue. Even last month I read the news, one woman died because of the same issue you discussed just before. Anyways, moving forward, Baje, so you have taken hundreds of volunteers in Nepal. So when they go to Nepal and do volunteering job and also enjoy Nepal, so how do they take it? Do they enjoy it? What is their typical response about it?
Well, I think that there was I was saying before about this lady from South Australia. She took her daughter in April this year. Her daughter is in year 12. And Sonia had been with us in 2007, so she'd been a group leader and very much part of what we have done in Nepal. But she also was involved in some other expeditions in other countries, so she'd had some experience of going overseas. But her commitment was that when her children, she got 2 boys and a girl, when their children were over 16, 17, she wanted them to experience Nepal. So in April this year, she took her daughter back with us, and that was because of her experience that was really valuable for her, that she wanted to share that with her children, and her daughter's the first one. So it's very much about, most cases, I reckon I can count on one hand those that have gone and left Nepal unhappy. If we've taken 1,300 people to Nepal, of that 5 or maybe 10, if we're lucky, would come home and say, no, not again. Whereas most people would say, I'd like to go again. There's a number of people that say, yep, ticked it off on the bucket list. I've done Nepal, I've trekked, Everest Base Camp or whatever it might be. But there's a lot of people that have come back and have changed lives. I'm really proud of the fact that we're not only changing lives of people in Nepal, but we're also changing lives of people that we take. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of stories of participants that have come back different people. I value what I have. I appreciate what I have. I understand now that there are other people need support, and I'll find ways to do it. Or my career is going to change from here to there. And again, there was a young guy that was walking with us. He's now decided, I don't know why you want to do with a health profession, but he's now to become a doctor because of his experience in Nepal. He saw what was needed, and he said, well, I'm going to now be a doctor. The one that stands out most in changes of people and commitment was a young lady, I think I can call her name, Naran. Naran was a young lady in Melbourne. This is our first trip in 2000. Naran was at an information session signing a document for us to come with us. She completed the document, she gave it to me, she gave a $500 deposit and said, I have to go to Nepal. Yeah, okay. But we're already full at that stage, but don't tell her that. But I read her application form. Her application form read that she was a single mum, she was living on the streets, she was addicted to drugs, she was in a bad way, but she needed to go to Nepal. So she went to Nepal because we were able to find funding to make that happen. She came back from Nepal, she went back to university, re-established a relationship with her bloke, and then in her studies, she then took on international studies. She then worked for the Red Cross in Australia. She then, 10 years later, might be a bit more, she rang me and she said, can I have a coffee? Yeah, no worries. So we had a coffee in Melbourne. She presented me with a hat. And I said, well, where'd you get the hat from? And she said, from Kabul in Afghanistan. And I said, well, is this okay with this? And I said, well, what is it? And she said, it's a rebel's hat from the Taliban. So I wasn't going to go out in the street with that on. However, I said, how come you're there? She said, well, I've now just been heading up a program for women's health in Kabul in Afghanistan on behalf of the International Red Cross. So if we can have that impact on people's lives, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's about having them step out of their comfort zone, having them supported in that way. You know, that's why we have them in teams. That's why we have group leaders. That's why we have people that are experienced about supporting teams and supporting people. So there are times when I'm really scared, I'm really worried about, the food's different, the environment's different, I've got to go to a drop toilet. There's all of that sort of stuff that is very different to what we experience in Australia. And to have someone support them through that, and then for them to come back and say, well, I now know it, I'm really lucky in where I am. And I'll change who I am maybe, or I'll have a different approach to how I deal with other people. So, it's really about having people go through the experience and support of that while they're in the country and afterwards. I still have contact with people that we worked with in 2000. It's very much about having that relationship that is still very strong.
This moment is really emotional. And I was happy for her because she got a path to live her life happily.
That's right.
And doing humanitarian work.
Yeah.
So that she can move forward.
Yep. And that's where, I still have a little bit of contact with her. She's very much involved with the issue that's happening in Gaza and that whole Palestine situation. But again, it's enabled her to find a path in life, as you say, that really has given her a focus. But it grew out of, her time in Nepal. It grew out of a relationship that we've had over those years. And probably, of the 1,300 people that we've taken to Nepal, there's still that number that have had a huge impact on their life. I don't know about it because I don't necessarily share that all the time. But I think, if you were to be able to track down some of these people and get their story, I think you might find that, their time in Nepal was very significant.
Baje, you have chosen Nepal to serve for a country which is wrecked by the system, government, bureaucracy, and which doesn't support to the people who are willing to do it. I just wanted to ask, how are you going for all these years? How do you manage to contribute?
I think it's probably because I just have a passion for people. I have a passion for people who are struggling.
Can you get a tissue? That's a tissue.
And it's okay. I got one of these. I got a Nepali rumal. It's about Nepali. Well, it doesn't matter whether it's Nepali or Australian. I'm really on about enabling people to achieve their goal, whatever that goal is, and have a life that is beneficial and meaningful. And when it becomes really personal, because when you have family now, that I've got people in Nepal that are very much I see as family. When one of my mates dies last week, who is a guy who is Dalit caste, uneducated, struggling to survive, is driving donkeys or having a donkey trail to take food up the trail or other goods up the trail, to live in a home that is very poor, to then have one son that is no longer with us, and 2 other sons and a daughter that are struggling to survive, and a wife. He dies last week and has very little to support or leave with their family. I feel for those people because it's about, they're as close as they are to my family here, because we've known them for 23, 4 years. We've spent time with them. We've worked with him. We've employed him to do what we do in the local community because he's a local tradesman. And it's about having a connection and a passion and a commitment to see people. And he's just one example. Indra is just one example of people that I want to see have a future. But unfortunately, his circumstances now lead his family to a whole range of new challenges. And I don't know what the answer is. I'd like to be able to go and find out. I'd like to be able to sit with the family, and I'd like to be able to see what support they have. But that's only one example, of what we can do. I speak a lot at different groups, and I have a PowerPoint presentation. And one of the slides that I use is about starfish. And it's a photo of a whole lot of starfish that are washed up on the side of the ocean on the beach. And we walk along the beach and we find this person throwing starfish back into the ocean. What are you doing? Well, I'm saving starfish. Yeah, but there's millions of them. You can't save all them. Ah, yes, but I can save that one. So we can make a difference. We can't make a difference to everyone, but we can make a difference to those in which we can support and manage and work with. We have the capacity to be able to work in these communities. I'd like to be able to work in lots of others, but I can't do it. But I can make a difference in that community because we know that we can achieve our goal.
Thanks for doing all this hard work.
I don't have any words that how can I acknowledge and thanks that you're doing for our communities.
That's swagatam.
So is there any trigger point or anyone who inspire you?
No, I think I grew up with a family that is very much about community.
Yeah.
But as I said before, people like Sir Edmund Hillary, who climbed Everest with Tenzing Norgay, but his legacy, Hillary's legacy is in the Solakumba region with the Hillary Foundation or the Himalayan Foundation. And when I've met him, on a number of occasions, we've sat and talked about, not just achieving a thing like climbing a mountain, but leaving a lasting impact on communities in which we work with. So I think that someone like him have been an inspiration. I must admit that when I go to Solakumba region where his statue is, that very easily shed a tear because it really is about seeing someone who has led the way and left a legacy which is long lasting. So I'm hoping that when I pass, that there is a legacy, that there is an organisation that continues to work, that there is other people that see our vision. And it's about trying to develop something that is sustainable. And some of that is about money, some of it is about personnel, and about having people that can continue what we do. But it is about having that vision. Our vision with our organisation is about hope, empowerment and change. And if we can do that, and leave that legacy and help others to be inspired, then I think we've done our job. But I think that people like Ed Hillary certainly showed that.
That's true. So as a founder of Aussie Accent Abroad, what can you see in coming 5 years? and how can like young people like us
Yep.
can help, and our viewers
Yeah.
can do for the better for your.
I mean, I'd like to think that we have another 25 years. This is our 25th year this year. We're celebrating
Congratulations.
25 years, so that's pretty important. But I'd like to think that in 25 years, another 25 years, we're still here. I might not be, but the organisation will. Although I did discover that today is my mother's birthday, and she would have been, if she was still alive, she would have been 99. So I'm hoping I've still got some of those genes that take me through to 99 or thereabouts. And if that's the case, well, I'll still be working in Nepal. But at the same time, I want to be able to have an organisation that is self-sustaining, that is financially viable, that is inclusive of people with a whole range of skills and abilities. And again, you know, the Nepali community in Australia and in Ballarat, you know, have been supportive. You know, we have a fundraising function coming up on the 6th of September in Melbourne, aimed at raising some money so that we can support some projects, but also celebrate our 25 years. I'd like to think that, you know, we have got some financial support and involvement of people that can act as interpreters or act as guides or act as project leaders. You know, so again, you know, for example, if I was to talk to some health people, nurses, don't know where I'd find some, but if I was to find a Nepali nurse, you know, who wanted to join with us and be with a team, then obviously that's the sort. That's the sort of thing.
Yeah, we have got nurse, plenty of nurse. They'll listen, obviously.
But that's the sort of thing that you can say, listen, we can use your skills in this area.
Yeah.
You know, or an educator. Do you know any teachers? You know, it's about, again, you know, we've got one of our participants, Catherine, you know, is working with schools, and it's about, encouraging, supporting teachers to support each other, you know, about developing clusters and developing professional developments, you know, whatever it might be. You know, and again, people who have got that experience to be able to share. But you've got the added bonus, and other viewers or others that might see our story today might say that, you know, they've got that language as well. You know, because yes, I've got that knowledge and experience. I know the local scene, and I have Nepali that I can speak. You know, because there's certainly there are a couple of times when we have, as I said before, a trekking team that supplies us with a guide and a cook and a porter or an assistant as we require it with a group. We had a team that went to Rosawa, and they were working on a school high on the border. And one of the guys, the Nepali guys in Kathmandu, rang me after they had arrived and said, we don't understand the local language because they're speaking local Tamang. And so to have people in the country that can help with that dialect translation is really valuable. And to have some local knowledge of the system or the bureaucracy or the projects, you know, again, if people are wanting to come, but unfortunately, you know, we don't have the capacity to cover their costs. But, you know, if they wanted to join with us, we'd welcome that opportunity for Nepali to join us. And some that have done that in the past have been based in Kathmandu. You know, we've had students from the Nepal Engineering College and other colleges, you know, that join with us as part of their experience. And we just charge them a nominal amount just to cover their food and lodging. So there's ways in which we can engage and have Nepali or Kathmandu-based or Pokhara-based people involved. But also, you know, people throughout Australia, if they want to join us, we're certainly willing to talk.
Thanks, Baje. Thanks for all your time and coming and sharing your stories. I know if we can, if you want to talk about it, we will go for like long hours. But I think we have got limited time. But some other day, we might do that again.
There's lots of stories.
It was a blessing to have you here.
Thank you.
And I would like to appeal with all the people watching this podcast. हजुरहरू नेपाली हुनुहुन्छ भने हामी यहाँ बाहिर आएको छौँ विदेशमा हामी काम गर्छौँ दुःख गर्छौँ त्यो आफ्नो ठाउँमा छ तर नेपालमा मान्छेहरू उहाँले बाजेले भने जस्तै अब छेउपाडी गोठमा मरिरहेको छ त्यस्तो मान्छेहरूलाई उहाँले सहयोग गर्नुभएको छ अनि त्यहाँको लोकल सानसानो स्कुलहरूको युट्युबमा भिडियोहरू पनि हेर्न सक्छ स्कुलमा चाहिँ बच्चा बच्चीहरूको लाई इन्क्लुड गरेर स्कुलहरू बनाउने टोयलेटहरू गाउँमा कस्तो फोहोर हुन्छ म्यानेज हुँदैन त्योहरू कामहरू गर्नुहुन्छ तपाईँले अलिकति पनि केही एमाउन्टहरू उहाँको अर्गनाइजेसनमा डोनेट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ भने इट वुड बी अ ग्रेट हेल्प आई थिङ्क द्याट्स द लिस्ट वी क्यान डु फर आवर कन्ट्री एन्ड सच अ ब्युटिफुल अर्गनाइजेसन द्याट हेज बिन सर्भिङ आवर कन्ट्री सो आई वान्ट यु टु acknowledge that. And also, they have got this 25 years celebration. It's happening in Brunswick, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. On Saturday at Cyprus Community Hall. We will post the description as well, so you can go and know more about the organization in there as well. And also, Aussie Action Abroad is DGI registered. That means if you donate the amount to them, you can deduct it on your tax as well. And myself and Bishal, we have decided we will contribute some amount as well from our organization, BD Universe, because he's doing everything for the good deeds. Let's support him, guys. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you, viewers.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Very Vitola.